Hello and welcome to our presentation on prototypes and how to apply them to your elicitation. What is a prototype? A prototype is a prototype of a system is an initial version of the system which is available early in the development process. Prototypes of software systems are often used to help elicit and validate system requirements. What are the pros of prototyping? Well, they provide detailed information about the system that's desired. They also are effective when coupled with other elicitation techniques. Prototypes are very effective when used in parallel, but are not optimally used as the first elicitation technique. Instead, they're better used after a fair amount of requirements have been gathered. Prototypes are also useful when developing human-computer GUI interfaces. Stakeholders can have a say in the color schemes and button mapping and all kinds of the user experience sides of things. Prototyping provides a good chance for stakeholders to be involved in the requirements engineering. By creating prototypes and asking for input from the stakeholders, we involve them in the ultimate functionality and aesthetic of the finished product. The technique is extremely helpful developing new systems for entirely new applications. Stakeholders, especially non-technical ones, can have a hard time visualizing something that doesn't exist, so prototyping can help them to have something they can look at and interact with. Some of the cons of prototyping. In many cases, prototyping is extremely expensive to produce in terms of time and cost. Depending on the fidelity of the prototype, it may require technologies that you might have to buy or spend substantial time learning. And ultimately, since it's a prototype, it might not be used in the final product. So that's a major consumption of time that might be irrelevant. Another big problem for prototyping is that the user often resists making changes once they get experienced in the test environment. This can lead to bad UI design just because that's what the user is familiar with. Prototypes are only effective if the stakeholders are familiar with the domain. Also, prototyping can be highly ineffective if stakeholders have highly varying perspectives on the domain. If your stakeholders either don't know what they want or anything close, or if they all have different ideas of what they want, prototypes can just be worthless. And prototypes do not generate statistical data. Unlike a survey or an interview, we are not asking questions with a prototype. This can lead to communication failures, especially among stakeholders who do not always know exactly what they want. Since we're not asking questions with the prototype, but we're just presenting something, this can cause stakeholders to become a little overwhelmed.
When should we use prototyping? We should use it to take into account the aesthetic appreciation of the product. While prototyping, we don't want to attempt to give the stakeholders and users a finished version of the app. Instead, we want to take small portions and try to elicit an emotional response. This way we can see symbolic meanings that they will attach to the portion of the project. Use it to explore new design options. This will allow us to bring new ideas to the table and view how they are accepted. It can be used to consider the role of each sensory quality while shaping the product experience. Designers should aim at creating the optimal conditions for eliciting the intended experience for users. Focus more on the experience rather than the product to be. The prototyping process is meant to trigger a similar multidimensional feeling into the target experience. Use it to challenge select aspects of the design, one, maybe two at a time. Use it to develop a better user interface. Allow us to capture the system requirements when they are unclear or dynamic. Use on a project with high innovation, creating a new system versus modifying an old system, low innovation. When shouldn't we use prototyping? Avoid relying on solely the visual appearance of the prototype and exploiting opportunities coming from all sensory modalities. In other words, don't only focus on visual appearances. Remember, simple can be better. Don't include every part of the project into the prototype. Use prototyping for a large project with a long duration. If the project cannot be shortened or divided into smaller projects, it can result in an unmanageable project. Don't use prototyping when the users are not willing to actively participate in the process. It's possible to end up too far off from the desired product. Be careful when a large number of users are involved in prototyping. It will be disadvantageous. It can be overloaded by too many ideas. Use prototyping when the project does not have management support. Then you'll be working for nothing. Use when developers lack experience training with prototyping. This could be overwhelming and end up being a disaster. Some situations when you might want to use prototyping, it would allow you to ensure that stakeholders agree on the user experience while using their software. The design team could use prototyping throughout the design process just to make sure that they've understood the experiences as expressed by other stakeholders and users.
So what does a prototype look like? One of the beautiful things about prototyping is it allows the user and all stakeholders to be able to see what the app may look like when it's actually in use. We've prepared a small video that shows actual usability. As you can see, there was a login screen, and now we're on the main splash page. From the main splash page, you can actually go and click on the user's icon up in the top right, and it'll go to their page where they can have their degree, what they're hoping to apply for, a resume, and possible job opportunities. You can also follow companies where you can see the company's bio and available positions that they have. From the splash screen, you can also see upcoming events based on your location. And from those pages, you can sign up for the individual interviews or information sessions. Here are some test questions that we've prepared on prototyping. Read the following example and identify the correct elicitation process. Your boss is unsure about your project and wants to see a rough version of what it will look like before he will be okay funding. What kind of elicitation process would help your boss? Which of the following attributes are benefits of prototyping? Select any that apply. Prototypes are useful when developing human-computer GUI interfaces. Prototypes provide a good chance for the stakeholders to be involved in the requirements of engineering. Prototypes are extremely helpful when developing new systems for entirely new applications. Prototypes provide an efficient way to collect information from multiple stakeholders quickly. Prototypes are used by the project manager to manage the users and systems tasks. And prototypes are best used as the first method of elicitation, true or false.